Hello again, everyone. Todd at the Real Estate Resource, continuing our series on listing presentations. And today we're talking specifically about presenting pricing. One thing I want you to take away from today, if nothing else, make sure that the consumer understands that it's the market that sets the price, not the seller, not the agent. Well, it's the market that sets the price if the seller wants a successful sale. So when I present price, I always want to start with my consumers' knowledge and educating them a little bit. Consumers typically have an understanding of what other properties in their area have sold for. It's not always an accurate knowledge. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they know very well what other properties are selling for and what theirs should sell for as well. But oftentimes they've got some inflated values in their mind because a friend of theirs told them that they sold their house for $500,000. In reality, they sold it for $400,000, something like that. So you come to a consumer and they've got varying levels of knowledge. And then also, they don't always understand what marketing does to get a property sold. Sometimes they think that you can sell a property for really inflated values if you've got great marketing. And I don't find that to be true. I do think great marketing has an impact on the sales price of a property, but that's within the range of market values. Great marketing, a great property, and you can bring in top market value for a home. The other thing that consumers tend to lack in knowledge on is what an appraiser's role in the process is. Sometimes they think the appraiser works for the buyer, sometimes for the seller. Heck, I've even had them say, "Oh, the appraiser works for the realtors." And in reality, as we know, the appraiser is there to protect the mortgage company. Unless there's a cash sale, there's probably an appraisal involved in every sale. And that for the mortgage company, the appraiser wants to establish a value so that the mortgage company, if they had to foreclose, can sell the property and get their investment back. That's what I explain to consumers so that they get an understanding and a buy-in. And then I tell them we want to act as pretty much an appraiser would when we establish our value. That way, we don't have to worry about a sale falling out because the home doesn't appraise. So to do this, I actually get seller participation in establishing the price. I use a one-line multiple listing service printout, which has the items that you see on the screen right now: sales price, days on market, square footage, price per square foot, bedrooms and baths, and it includes everything that's sold in the past 12 months. Appraisers will typically only go back 6 months, but they will extend to 12 months if they need to find good comparables. As I said, I get seller participation then. I have them choose the best 3 comparables, those houses that are most comparable to theirs. Now, there's a reason I always include that price per square foot. When you look at these, whether it be 10 comparables, 20, 30, whatever, you'll find that they always kind of lump together with an average. If the average is $150 a square foot in a neighborhood, you'll find some at, starting at $145, maybe up to $153 a foot, but they're usually pretty consistent within an area. There's going to be your outliers. Those outliers might be the property that went for $100 a foot. That was the fixer upper. It was in bad shape. And then there's the other outlier, the one that went for $170 a foot. And the seller will often latch on to that $170 a foot because that's what they would like. So what I do is, in order to help direct the consumer to pick the best comparables, I've got a full detail on every one of those included in the one line so that we can look at it. Well, usually what you find with that 170 outlier, the one on the high end, that one usually had some special circumstances. Maybe there's an extra 1,000 square feet in the property that they haven't let the tax assessor know about yet. Or maybe the seller, did owner financing. So not only did they sell the property, but they acted as the bank. And that's a great way to approach that. If the seller says, "Oh, I like this one, it's close to mine," I would point out, "Hey, they did seller financing. Would you consider doing that? Because you can bring a premium back." And most times they'll say no, but it helps justify that comparable not being really a good comparable for theirs. And as I'm doing this, I'm always using the word market price. I'm not talking about the seller price or their price. This is what the market will bear. And then we use that data. We pick 3. We use that data to identify a range of prices. So if on the low end, properties are selling for $145 a foot, on the high end, $153 a foot, If we've got a 3,000 square foot property we're talking about, that gives us a pretty tight range between about 435,000 and 460,000. And then I just asked the seller to be honest. Where does your house fall? Is it on the bottom end? Is it, closer to being the best in the neighborhood? And then we can zero in on a price that way. So that's basically the process I use to establish it. And in just a second, I'll do a little role play with a friend of mine so that we can see how that process works in an actual listing presentation. All right, we're going to go ahead and do a quick little role play here on presenting pricing to a seller. And to do that, I've got my friend Laura here to help me out. Hello, Laura.
Hey, Todd.
So when we are presenting pricing, I always want to start with establishing the seller's knowledge around properties in their area and an appraiser's role in the process. So Laura, with that in mind, do you have an idea of what homes in your neighborhood are selling for?
No idea.
Okay, well, we'll get into that. Are you familiar then with what an appraiser does in a real estate transaction?
Well, I think they work on behalf of the realtor.
Well, not really. Typically, the appraiser that is there to establish a value for the mortgage company to protect them. Most properties, as you know, sell with a mortgage. It's not a cash sale. Would you agree with that?
Sure.
Okay, great. So what an appraiser does is they take a look at properties that have sold recently. Usually they limit it to about 3 properties that have sold recently that are of about the same size in about the same area as your home. And when they do that, they look for similarities and kind of evaluate your property against them. That way they can establish a price that will make sense to the mortgage company. The mortgage company feels comfortable lending money on it so that if the buyer ever defaulted, they could get their money back by reselling it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so what we want to do is we want to act like an appraiser would. So what I've done is I brought a list, and you can see there's about 20 properties here. And it's just a one-up list of different properties that have sold recently in your area of homes that are about the same size and age. So would you do me a favor and circle 2 or 3 of those, or circle the 3 that look most similar to your property?
Sure.
Okay. So Laura's circled 3 properties for us, and they're all very good comparables. And you can see this one sold for about $145 a square foot. This one went for $150 a square foot. Ooh, it's interesting you chose this one. This one went for $170 a foot. And it does look to be about the same as all the others. One thing I did do was I brought a full printout on that. And here it is. And you can see that in this case, the seller actually financed this home for the buyer. So there was seller financing involved. So not only did they act as the seller, they acted as the bank. I'm just curious, would you consider seller financing?
Probably not for us.
Okay. So we really can't count that. So could you choose another one, please?
Sure. How about this one?
Okay, great. And now you can see that these 3 comparables, as I pull out the full detail in each of them, they're all very similar to yours. In fact, I think this one's your exact floor plan. And they all went for between $145 and $153 a square foot. With that in mind, your house should sell somewhere between $435,000 and $459,000. Does that make sense as you're looking at it?
Yeah, it seems about right.
Okay, good. And let me just ask you, in relation to yours, would you say your property is one of the best in the neighborhood, or it could use a little work, or it's about average?
Probably right in the middle.
Okay. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Based on that, I'd recommend a list price of about $450,000. Are you ready to get started at that price today?
Yeah, I guess that sounds good.
Great. Thank you. And thanks, everyone. Now, that was an easy seller for me to work with, but you get the idea of how we present price. Later on, we'll work with you on some objection handling techniques. If you need anything else, please always feel free to give me a call or email me at tsankovich@gmail.com. I will look forward to talking to you all soon. Thanks.